Terrell and I are back, and we are going to do a discussion on how to survive this time of heightened fear, collective trauma, and protect your own mental health and protect your friendships, both online and in real life, when everything is as it is, where people fall on different sides of these issues. This is a real crisis. Like, this is a real issue. This dynamic existed in the 1930s during the rise of Hitler. If you look at Dorothy Thompson, who was the extraordinary British American journalist that won the home front against the Nazis, against the Elon Musks of the day, the Henry Fords, the Charles Lindberghs, and calling them out and fighting for, advocating in her columns and her radio broadcasts for Jewish refugees that the world was turning away, that no one wanted to save because they did not value their lives. She advocated for, what do we do with these refugees? How do we protect them? Where a piece of paper is a matter of life or death. She had a massive falling out with a friend, a woman that she fought with in the suffragist movement, because of Dorothy Thompson's support for FDR, because FDR was finally going to lead America into the liberation of Europe against an isolationist Republican Party. Same dynamics of today. And this friend, Helen Reid, who was her boss, a powerful woman, basically fired her, refused to renew her contract, where she wrote a column for the Herald Tribune. This was a falling out between two women who went from being in the trenches together to having a messy separation divorce that left Dorothy Thompson on her own, having to, lose audience, lose financial support, and go down a couple pegs, writing for a smaller newspaper where she tried to rebuild. But she cared about what she was saying. She believed in what she was saying, and she was willing to lose friendships, willing to lose audience, willing to lose money. And that's why she's a hero of mine, where you have to stand in your truth, fight for what you believe in, and sometimes you risk your own friendships doing that. Sometimes you learn who your true friends are in doing that. And no matter how much you can tell them, well, I'm coming from this perspective because I'm actively trying to stop a genocide. I know you don't fully agree with me or understand me or see me, but I'm trying to stop a genocide. And it can be extremely hard. And in Terrell's position, he is somebody that I've not always agreed with, and he hasn't always agreed with me. And he's somebody that's been ahead of issues where the rest of America had to catch up. And I've been that person too when it came to Russia and Trump, right? Remember the hit pieces calling me a conspiracy theorist when all I was pointing out was what the Senate intelligence report would ultimately come out to say and the Mueller report would come out to say. So for Terrell and I, it sucks being early. It sucks being first, because you're really sticking your neck out there. And unfortunately, in media, on social media, there's a conformist attitude because people are trying to climb a career ladder. They're trying to get fancy job titles. They're trying to get think tank appointments. They're trying to get on cable news. They're trying to sell their books. They're trying to get their next book deals. So people like to cater. They like to pander. Whereas Terrell, I feel we live in the moment and we have an emergency response to wherever that emergency is. And we try to stay grounded in who is being caught in the middle of this. Who are the civilians? Who are the people that are being trampled on by these larger forces and their disinformation machinery? And we try to stay grounded in the vulnerable communities caught in the middle. And we just stand in our truth. We stand in our truth. And that is what has always liberated us and sustained us. And so, Terrell, I want to talk a bit about your experience being a lone Black voice trying to decolonize a lot of misunderstood places in the world, including Ukraine, in foreign policy, in global affairs, where you're tokenized by institutions that want to get credibility for themselves, right? But they don't really see you or hear you. And then online, when you've been really consistent, you're about liberation for all people, and you look at where the power is. When the power is overwhelmingly here, you then look at who's vulnerable to those power forces and who's being misunderstood. And you've done that consistently for Ukraine. And now you're getting pushback because what you're pointing out is that Palestinians do not have the same voice in many parts of the West, and they're often misunderstood, and they're demonized as terrorists, and they're jumbled up with Hamas. And just like Ukrainians deserve agency as not being some Cold War pawn, Palestinians deserve agencies. They're not a monolith. Many absolutely cannot stand Hamas, and they do need to have greater support, not even physical security, financial security, but also mental health treatment because of the generations of trauma that they have endured, including largely a silence from many powerful countries around the world where their lives don't matter, and that they have to just continue to compromise, give up more land, and just live as not even second class citizens. I wouldn't even say, it's like less than that. And you recognize their liberation as your own liberation as a black person in America, and how you've been, historically, black people have been treated as a second class citizen, worse than, obviously in the Jim Crow South and beyond with the Holocaust of slavery. And so you, in trying to understand, bring that lens, that decolonization lens to this larger issue, you've been through it by a lot of people that are supposed to be your friends, that have supported your work when your position is convenient to them, but don't really see you as a person and where you're coming from. So how are you dealing with that?
It's really painful. And sometimes you ask yourself, in the case of Ukraine, sometimes I ask myself, why am I here? And when you get this pushback, you wonder, do you care about me as much as I care about you? You have those moments of doubt. And what drives my passion for being in Ukraine, yeah, I went to school. I went to graduate school, and I have a couple of master's degrees, and so I know this region from a cerebral, intellectual standpoint. But I'm a black man that grew up in the largest black city in the United States, in Detroit, Michigan. And one of the things that opens my heart to Ukrainians is that I understand what oppression is. I understand political abuse. I know a shitstorm when I see it because I've seen shitstorms in my own country. And, Andrea, we both come together, and we met during digital Maidan. We understand shitstorms very well from two different experiences. What makes our relationship so beautiful is that we respect each other's experiences. And I come from, in addition to my academic studies, I also understand critical race theory. I also understand black liberation theology. And I look at structures. So my training compels me to look at structures from my own country, but also in the case of Ukraine. So it was really easy for me to come here because black liberation theology is not an exclusive faith. It centers our experience, but ultimately, in the church that I attend in Brooklyn, I am encouraged. We are taught that in our faith, that liberation is for everybody. And in my faith, I can't pursue my liberation and ignore the liberation of other people. And so that's what drives me. It's a faith-based approach because, generally speaking, what me being in the heart of Kyiv right now, I mean, it's illogical and inconsistent with my experience, my pretty much all black experience throughout the first 20 years of my life. And when you enter these think tank spaces, these conferences, I'm almost always the only black person. When I go speak to State Department officials, I'm usually the only black person in the room. And I come with a vastly different set of personal experiences and academic training that makes me look at these problems in a very different way. I don't look at it from a neoliberal perspective. I look at it from a liberation perspective. Ukraine is seeking liberation. It's about corruption, but our policies should be designed in a way that empowers people to be liberated and free from themselves. So when I think about Israel, I want Israel, our policy, to be liberating. And that means not backing a country that governs under apartheid structures. My tradition tells me to speak truth to power. And I think one of the things
Well, I think
when
I
I
just want to
talk to
jump in. I
people,
think it's not just we're not going to remove backing of Israel. It's like we support Israel's right.
yeah, of course.
You
I'm
know what I
sorry. I
mean?
didn't,
Like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes.
I got your back on that one because Terrell and
I
I
didn't mean,
talk personally, so I know what his position is on things. And sometimes when we're having these conversations, we use shorthand because he knows I know his position on things. So
yeah,
and
yeah,
so that's
yeah,
why I had to just
yeah,
say it. Like Israel has a right to exist. That's not what we're saying.
yeah,
We want Israeli democracy to be protected and
correct.
to thrive. And that is the way you are a secure nation. And you don't have the worst intelligence failure ever in Israel's history, as has happened this weekend.
Yeah, and it's important to do that. Yeah, it's important to do that. And we want to liberate Israel. And a liberated Israel is one where I want everyone to feel safe. I've been to Israel. It's a it's a beautiful place despite all of its problems. And it's a beautiful place in which everybody should walk around freely. And this democracy push that went on before this war started was one that was that was necessary, and one that you want to also include those of Palestinians. But my point, is that I think that when we are having these difficult conversations, I think it starts by understanding where we come from and who we are as people, and understand that we come from back. What tradition do you come from? When you see these events, how do you feel? And the first thing that I do with people that I care about is I remind them of the friendship, especially if I'm close to them, and what kept us together. And it's in these moments where it feels so divisive, it's an opportunity for us to really understand what makes us who we are. So even those people who are very, I'm going to use a constructive word, passionate about the rallying behind the Israeli flag, all these things, what the conversations that I hope to facilitate with people I care about is, yes, I definitely want that flag to be something everyone should rally around Israel over what happened. What I also want is that flag to be something that every single person who lives on that territory can also feel proud of. That's all. We want everyone to have equitable access to the rights and privileges of that flag. And so and that's what helps resonate me with Palestinians, because they understood that American proximity to the virtues and to the dignity and to the liberty of our flag is not the same as it is for other citizens. That's what links us. And I want you to focus on that, and and more about why I'm so hurt when I see people that I love referred to as terrorists, and that they only want criminal that they support these horrible acts of violence that took place, because it reminds me of when we've had uprisings, and when protesters reacting to these events, BLM events, did things that they weren't supposed to do, and I'm pigeonholed in stereotypes too. So we have these cross continental relationships have been building for decades through the Black Power tradition, through the Black global diasporic global solidarity experience. And so that's what when I come to Ukraine, when I go to Poland, that's what I bring. Just as Ukrainians bring their own experiences. And because of Western hegemony and the way that it's set up, unfortunately, the politics of it at times make us clash. And once we have those type of conversations, then if your heart is open and if you care about the human being across from you, you will cry through it, you will hug through it, you'll get angry through it. But what you hope is that that person that you're looking that's across from you will start to understand the pain that you're feeling and vice versa. And I just hope everybody's listening that when you're going through these very tough times, that you do the very difficult work to preserve the relationships that mean something to you and do not give up on them, because the world, that so many people have been discarded over the past few days. People's lives have been taken, people's spirits and their minds have been damaged. And all of us are hurting in these same structures that are harming us, that are torturing us. We're psychologically doing it to ourselves. And that's where we can stop it. This is something that we have the power to do immediately. And my last parting words is, we need to have the guts to do for ourselves what our governments refuse to do for us.